the same way.
So what does Latinas for Cannabis do?
So Latinas in Cannabis, it's the largest online and in-person community for Latinas who work in the industry, but also Latinas who just simply love the plant. Because at the end of the day, we love the plant, but we don't have community to make it safe for us to consume. So a lot of Latinas, a lot of Latinos as well, we're consuming behind closed doors. You know, a lot of Latinas and Latinos were like, oh, I want to buy a bong, Susie, but I can't have it out because this and that, right?
So is Latinas for Cannabis more geared towards consumers or business people?
Honestly, it's both.
Back. I'm your host now because Dimitri's over there. Just your host, Max Uhas from Dope SEO, and we are here at another episode of Meat Unshackled here at Benzinga, Miami, day 2, and we're here with Arthur from. Is it Zeal or Zeal?
Zeal.
Zeal. Okay, cool. Arthur from Zeal. We were having a very in-depth conversation about a few other things. I was like, let's actually save this for the podcast because what you do, I think the industry needs. What you do, I think, is very unique for the industry, and I want you to explain to everybody what. Well, first off, Arthur, pleasure to have you. Good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Max.
Absolutely.
First time on Mita.
Really? First time ever on Mita. Okay, cool. So I'm popping your Mita cherry. So Arthur's here. Arthur's got a great handshake. He's well-traveled. He actually pronounced my last name correctly, which I think is phenomenal. How did you get into cannabis?
Like most people, unexpectedly.
Right on. So it wasn't planned. You weren't like, you didn't have a...
No, it's an interesting backstory. So it ties into what we do today. We got our roots in the food industry.
Okay.
So in 2009, there was a salmonella outbreak in California for the almond industry.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, California is the largest almond producer, more than 80% in the world.
Yeah.
And so when the salmonella outbreak occurred, there was no way to put in practices to help them meet regulatory compliance on a consistent basis. So regulators...
Wait, there really was no way to put in regulatory...
They did not have a practice of reducing the microbial loads of E. coli or salmonella. It was unlike milk, which is all pasteurized before it gets to the consumer. There was no, quote, kill step in the almond business.
So people just picked the nuts and gave the nuts over. There was no cleaning, washing...
No.
Decontamination, anything
For the decontamination, no.
Okay.
And that's where the microbial pathogen story, feeds into the cannabis story. So for half dozen years, following the salmonella outbreak, UC Davis, which is the ag university in California, said, hey, there must be a way to add a kill step for almonds. Other than steam, which had a negative impact on the quality.
Yeah, because mushy almonds are gross.
PPO, which is carcinogenic, which is killing you.
Is death.
And so they said, hey, this radio frequency technology, which is a thermal process, has been used for 40 years after World War II seamlessly to dry textiles. But we think it has an application in food, so let's test it out. So fast forward, a company was stood up to commercialize that technology.
Okay.
And then they launched the commercial operations in seeds and nuts in California, Australia, in South America for chia seeds, sesame seeds. So it had a real platform and has a growth in the food industry. And then we got a tap on the shoulder in 2016, shortly after Colorado went adult use.
Right.
And the tap on the shoulder was this young kid, and he said, I have these microbial pathogens in my product that need addressing, otherwise I'm going to be out of business.
Was this for cannabis?
And so the executive said, well, that's great. What is the product? Well, I am the operations director, and I stood up the largest outdoor cannabis farm in the United States. 40 acres.
Oh, yeah.
And that company is called Los Sueños Farms.
Okay.
Which was a real leader at the time. 40 acres was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
And
40 acres still is, that's a pretty big outdoor grow. So
subsequently acquired a few years back by Curaleaf for $69 million.
Okay.
But that's how it got started. So a partner and I, we acquired our predecessor in 2017, and we saw the food business, and we said, very interesting, but the 700 farmers in California, has taken them 50 years to get to a $2 billion wholesale market. And the Colorado adult use market got pretty much to $1 billion in a year.
Right.
So gee, which one do you want to be in?
Right.
So food business got parked to the side. We went all in.
Right.
And so we started working in Colorado. We
Okay.
worked with the Green Solution, which was later acquired by Columbia Care, which was then acquired by Cresco. So then we went up to Canada and worked with large LPs up there. And so that was how we got started. And 90% of our business is now in cannabis. So we provide the premier solution,
Okay.
organic, GMP validated solution that doesn't use chemicals, doesn't use gas, doesn't use ionizing radiation,
No poisons.
to remove the microbial pathogens
Okay.
to allow a cultivator to meet the state
Standards. Okay.
So we are in
To
a
sell.
very quiet, niche-y, small part,
Yeah.
but vital.
Very incredibly necessary for anybody that basically grows but also purchases flower, because you don't. I mean, you've seen the stories, you've seen the other stuff where people are trying to sell moldy weed. You know what I mean, or stuff. And what's funny is I have a friend of mine who did an outdoor grow by himself. I helped him trim. He was. I'm taking it all down. Where you're going to help me harvest everything. We were hanging everything a couple days. Started pulling out the buds.
Oh, yeah.
You had caterpillars coming out of the buds because it was an outdoor grow, and it was like, I guess it was the season. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to spray for pesticides on their weed because then you're just basically consuming pesticides. Am I wrong? Or
Yeah.
okay.
There are three gates, I'll say, that any cultivator needs to go past to get past go. One is heavy metals.
All right.
That's pretty black and white.
That's from your soil, though, right?
From your soil.
Okay.
You either picked a good outdoor grow place or you didn't. If
Right.
you're indoor, heavy metals aren't going to be an issue.
Shouldn't be an issue.
Pesticides, very discreet list.
Right.
You know what do's and don'ts. Got that. But the one that keeps growers up at night is the microbial testing, because that is the wild card.
So what is microbial? Is that like insects? Is that
So back to the salmonella story.
bacteria? Is that okay?
Microbial pathogens. So we all have heard of, excuse me, salmonella, E. coli, in food, outbreak. But there are 4 or 5 others beyond that are checklists that you need to do. So, for
Okay.
instance, in the state of, across the 34 legal states, medicinal, 3 of those categories run across the board. That is E. coli, salmonella, and aspergillus.
And that can grow. Well, I know aspergillus, but I didn't realize E. coli and salmonella can form on cannabis.
Well, E. coli, without getting too nitty-gritty here, forms from bad sanitation practices.
Ill.
Salmonella, yeah. So that's why you see signs,
Yeah,
all
wash
employees
your
must
hands.
wash hands.
Yeah.
But the salmonella is carried by birds.
Right.
So,
Birds
outdoor
fly
grows.
everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other ones, a moist environment. So total yeast and mold count checked for, total aerobic count, biotolerant gram-negative, coliforms. So there are other buckets besides those other ones, the big 3, I'll say, that
Holy
you check
crap.
for. So if you do nothing, if you're a grower, generally you're going to fail between 5 and 20% of your harvest
Because
you're going to fail one of those.
right.
Now,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really crazy because like I was telling you, like I live in Texas now, and we're right below Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was basically, at one point in time, Oklahoma had like 7,000, 8,000 licensed growers
Right.
in the state because it was like $2,500 to get a grow license.
Hasn't worked out too well.
No, I mean it's definitely fun to watch. Yeah, I got you. But I'm just curious, like, because I think a lot of people go into it. It's like, I'm just going to outgrow. I want to grow, and they don't realize everything that goes into that. It's really,
Sure.
I think there's a difference between growing for your own personal consumption and then growing for retail, growing to sell, growing for
Right.
mass. Especially when you're talking about a 40-acre. So your first jump in on this was 40 acres.
Yes.
Of outdoor cannabis.
Right. About 50,000 pounds.
Holy crap.
Per year.
Like that's a trial by fire in and of itself.
It was.
It wasn't like, it was like, hey, I'm going to take this little grow room and sanitize it. It was.
Yeah. And in the arc of the industry, in my short 7 years in cannabis, a lot of capital flooded in the early years, especially Canada. And everyone was, how do we deploy the capital? Let's get our walls up. Let's get our lights in. And very few people were really thinking downstream. Well,
Right.
here are all the
sanitation stuff.
You're all the parts you need to address to get to the retail window. And so you could do all those things well. And doing those things well, your grow operations, dialing things in, your post-harvest treatment, it's a bit of an art.
But you can still end up dirty just by somebody doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. I don't know if you're a backgammon player or anyone in the audience is, but backgammon is one of those games where you can do everything right. And still lose because the dice go against you.
Right.
So it's a little bit that way in cannabis, is that you can do everything right upstream that you think you're doing, and then get to that final certificate of analysis and, whoa, you failed. So what we provide is I'll call it the sleep relief.
Okay.
So if you're a cultivator and you have not treated your product before testing, and your third-party labs come on your premises, taking that gram of product, going back to their lab, and now you're waiting for 7 days while they cultivate. Well, you are playing COA roulette.
Right.
So if a cultivator has just harvested 1,000 pounds and he's looking at 50 pounds or 150 pounds, that 5 to 15%, that might fail. That's profit.
That's a lot of profit.
That
could be all your profit, actually.
Yes.
I mean, considering that's knowing your margins, what your margins are, that could be you're literally just making enough, and then you have to trash your profit because it's whatever, it pops hot, or whatever. Yeah.
So you heard me use the milk metaphor. Before, and that's a very good example of what a kill step does. It's done ahead of time. It is not a badge of dishonor that you had a kill step.
Yeah.
It's best practices.
Right.
And I think the industry is moving to is a consumer might say, if you need to treat the product, that means you've done something wrong.
No, if anything, it means that you're just doing your due diligence to make sure that you're delivering a well created product.
So what we're seeing today is a shift. For years, growers would fail at 5 to 15%, and then they would, quote, remediate it with one of the technologies, including ours. Well, that's expensive. It's delayed to market. And it also you get dinged in metric as having failed. And so the dispensary is going to discount your product. It's perception. Now, so what the cultivators have done is they've moved it before testing as a kill step. So it's just part of their standard operating procedures. So they do it for 100% of their grow.
Holy crap.
And every multi-state operator, if there one's out there that doesn't do this, please call me. I'd like to meet you.
Yeah, seriously.
But I will say every multi-state operator has a kill step with the technology.
You'd think so. So
look at it from their perspective. If they maybe did nothing, but by fluke they passed microbial testing. But there was a little bit left. Well, it goes on the shelf and it can regenerate. Right? And then it becomes a threat.
And then it's cancer. You know what I mean? It's cancer cells doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and then it just...
And then you have a product recall.
The fungus fungus.
So death, I came out of Big Pharma. I worked for AstraZeneca. And, death is a product brand recall.
Right, absolutely.
And so
that's everything.
Not only is the brand reputation just knocked down by the consumer, but the money.
The money's gone.
The money to pull it back.
Yeah, because you got to spend to pull it back.
And is a dispensary ever going to carry your product again if you have a recall?
Not. Right. Absolutely not. So if for anybody that's watching this or cultivating, because I'm assuming you work primarily with cultivators.
Yep.
Okay. So how do cultivators who may or may not, who could have just been like, holy crap, mind blown, I've been looking for something like this, or I didn't know I needed this, how do they get in touch with you?
Zeal.com. Ziel.com.
That's a great domain name.
Well, Zeal is a German name. And it means target. So we target microbial pathogens.
There you go.
And Germany, by the way, is one of our big focus markets right now because of the law dropping April 1st.
That's exciting. We had a few people on yesterday that were talking about it. It's that's going to be interesting. And what's funny is I think Germany's going to benefit a whole lot from what you're doing as well.
They already are, and we're in the unique position. I like to think we were the Wayne Gretzky of our among our competitors. We went to where the puck was going to be, not where it is. So
smart thinking.
Germany was we knew it was going to come one point.
Right.
And so we got ourselves well positioned, and our technology is GMP.
All right.
And that's a medical market over there. So GMP is a prerequisite to selling.
Beautiful.
And so our equipment is now been GMP validated at our customer in Portugal. And Portugal is a big feedstock country. into Germany. So
this isn't just U.S. You're international as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The other benefit is that this organic, non-gas, non-chemical, non-ionizing radiation is really important because Germany has a
Europe has a bunch of laws that they don't care
they
about.
They don't like ionizing radiation.
Yeah.
And so, if you're using an X-ray solution or a gamma or an E-beam, you need to get your strain, and it's every strain, registered with what's called B-Farm. And it's going to cost you 2,500 euros per strain, and it's going to take you 6 to 12 months to get it registered. So if you're time to market with a new strain, and the name of the game is new strains, you got to get to market.
Yeah.
So the winds are blowing. We must be GMP validated.
Yeah.
And it must be non-ionizing, solution.
Wow. So for anybody that's even thinking about getting into the European market, contact you. For anybody that's here in the U.S. market that wants clean cannabis,
correct,
contact you. Zeal.com. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Arthur, I want to thank you so much for jumping on. I feel like we could talk about this for hours and hours, but Eric keeps giving me, he's walking over and giving me the down.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And for anybody that's looking for this, it's Zeal, Ziel.com. If you're here at Benzinga, they've got the really cool booth over there. I guarantee you they could demo some stuff here that's well worth seeing. Okay? This has been another episode of Meat Unshackled. Arthur, thank you so much for jumping on this. And that's a wrap.